Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. And we are back.
We are back.
I'm Jason Kreidman.
I am Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads.
How's it going? Sigh?
It's going well. We ask these questions every time. Does somebody really want to know how it's going?
No.
No? You
just want to...
Oh, no, it's going good.
It's polite.
How are you doing?
Great.
No, everything is wonderful. You know, it depends how you evaluate that.
Yeah.
You know, if you think of like big picture, which
Right.
Gary Vee, one of the guys I listen to,
Yeah.
watch the podcast,
Yeah.
and on YouTube, talks about the big picture.
Sure.
And when you focus on the big picture, things are usually pretty darn good.
Yes.
You know, especially if you have the health of your family and the people around you.
If you have the ability to focus on the big picture, then probably things
That's
are
true.
doing pretty good. You know
That's
what I
a
mean?
good
The
way
fact
of
that you
thinking.
kind of look back at that. So.
Yeah, so one of the things, we try to educate here.
Mm-hmm.
We try to, although last week was more about, we got some awesome feedback, by the way, on that.
Good.
Yeah, some great emails. Thank you, everybody, to giving us some feedback on that. That was about, it was a call to women to stop intervening.
Yeah.
Yes.
We got this.
We got this.
We got this.
So this week, I wanted to talk about the 4 types of parenting styles.
Okay.
And the reason I think this is important is if you're going to be a parent, you're going to be a dad, a soon-to-be dad, it's important, I think, to understand what kind of personality you have and the parenting style that maybe you had, meaning your parents had.
Yeah, what you had. Yeah,
and
exactly.
identifying, is that something that you want to do? And what kind of parenting style is attractive for you?
Yeah. And then what? I guess what's more prone to work? I'm always curious about that.
We have that answer.
No,
That's
statistically.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 4 types of parenting styles.
Yeah.
And then talk about how you can recognize each one. So, like, how do you know if you're that one?
Okay.
And then its effect on kids.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, what's the end result? If you are that kind of
Yeah.
parent, what is the tendency for the kid to be like?
I am very interested in this as being.
So we actually want to provide some quality.
Yeah.
So the 4 types of style. So there was actually, originally this was created by a woman, Diana Baumrind.
Okay.
I think that's her name. It was long ago. She was a psychologist and such. And she had the 3 major styles, and then they added another one, which is like neglect or so, and I'll talk about that. The first one is the authoritarian style.
Okay.
I hope I'm pronouncing all these correctly.
Right.
Authoritarian, yes. So authoritarian parenting is really strict.
Yeah.
It relies, think of authoritative.
Sure.
Yeah,
an authority figure.
Authority figure, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking of. Strict, relying on obedience.
Yeah.
So they actually rely on like somebody obeying what your command is. There's a lot of structure.
Yes.
So a lot of rules, a lot of structure, but really there's too much structure and too many rules. So,
Okay.
it's proven that, rules and structure are good for kids. We talk about
for
routine
sure.
and all this stuff. But this is something where it's like you're so strict and you're so... Now, people can say like almost like, somebody who like grew up with a military father.
Yeah.
Someone who's very, very strict or, something like that where, say that maybe the stereotype, where the parents are much more strict. Everything is sort of rules and regimented and that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like do what I tell you to do because I told you to do it.
Yes.
That's why.
In fact, one of the most common terms that you can identify and how you identify is because you said, because I said so.
I said so, yeah. That's the
So
worst.
if you find yourself saying, because I said so,
Yeah.
you're doing it based a lot on ego, and I would say that you probably don't have a tremendous amount of, quote, parenting skills because you're using, tactics of intimidation, anger, fear.
Yeah.
Those are things that aren't typically taught. Those are a lot of just like innate things that I shouldn't say they're not taught. They're taught from generations to generations.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, parenting experts are not going to teach you that.
Right.
And so here's some ways that how you would recognize it. So the first one is you use punishment to get your kids to do something. Like, that's how you do that, or for something that you ask. you're really not that warm and fuzzy towards the child, so maybe a little cold in that sense.
Yeah.
Now, I think in general people would stereotype this as being much more men than women. Just we're talking warm and fuzzy and emotional and that kind of stuff. That's not part of it. Not to say there's certainly women who fall into this category. You have strict rules that need to be followed. And like I said before, you use the term "I said" because I said
so. Yeah.
So
that's immediately what I thought of.
Totally. No, absolutely. So authoritarian. What happens with the kids? So what does this do to the kids? So one of the first things is low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Just kids probably beaten down and emotionally.
Yeah.
They have a tendency to have difficulty in social situations. They misbehave outside of the parental unit. At home, they're because they have to be in fear.
Yeah.
And outside of the home, and that's another one. They're fearful or shy or timid, etc. And then they associate obedience with love.
Mm.
So this could be people that were abused.
Yeah.
And like a woman who goes into an abusive relationship, that's what she did. That's how she interprets love to be, as somebody who's doing that.
Right.
So far, I didn't find anything that was positive.
Right.
Out of this, and you got to be very aware that if you have a tendency to be very rule. Now, I can tell you, like my parents were not this way. I think maybe my father was a little bit more than my mother. But I have a little bit of this. I think out of human nature of like being very regimented and that. So you have to be aware of that.
Sure.
That you're not using a lot of that technique.
Well,
because that's the last thing I want to do is rule by fear and all those things that I'm learning through this process.
Sure.
That's not what I want to do.
Yeah. And some of the traits aren't necessarily authoritarian by nature, like being kind of regimented isn't even necessary.
No, but it's taking it too far.
It's that combination of
which I can admit to because, like, let's say it's bedtime. Mm-hmm. Well, it's 7:30 and you're not in bed. Get in bed now. Yeah. Like, versus like, okay, it's 7:40. We're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
It's not every single time needs to be so regimented. So I can identify with that. It's just you've got to learn to back off.
Yeah.
You've got to do that. And I think a lot of people have that style.
Yeah.
It's
I know a lot of people who grew up that way.
Yeah. It didn't say anything about. I mean, you used punishment. It didn't say anything about like hitting or spanking or anything like that,
right,
which I was not a believer in.
Yeah.
But
get a whooping.
Yeah. But those definitely were those kinds of parents.
Sure.
That was the type of parenting style.
For sure.
So it doesn't sound like that's a very good one. As far as what happens to the kids. What do the kids end up being?
Right.
Who wants the kid to have low self-esteem?
They would actually carry it down to their kids, or
of course
to their friends, even to people that are like they're if they're in their little social circles.
Right.
So yeah.
So the next style is permissive parenting. It's also known as indulgent. So basically, this is responsive, meaning they're involved and they have interaction with the child, but they're not very demanding at all. Mm. In fact, they avoid confrontation. Mm. Total lack of structure. There's positives with this one, is that the children are usually very loved and the parent is very nurturing. So there's an abundance of love and that, so this is often people you would look at as like, wow, they're just so relaxed.
Yeah.
Like in that sense. And they did, whatever. Like laissez-faire. Just like whatever the kid wants to do, like just go for it.
Yeah.
So how do you recognize someone who's permissive a parent? Do you avoid conflict with your child? Mm-hmm. Like at all costs? Like, I don't want to make them upset. You want to be their friend rather than their parent.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And then you use rewards or bribes to get them to do things.
Right.
Which is really common.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, we'll do this, and then the child. So the permissive one is not necessarily, it's not bad in the sense that they're usually very warm and nurturing, but from a learning standpoint and the child's self-esteem and all that. So here's what happens in the permissive parent aspect. Here's what happens with the kids typically. This is not in stone.
Right.
So teens of permissive parents are 3 times more likely to engage in underage heavy alcohol consumption. Because they don't have barrier. There's no boundaries.
No one's watching them.
Yeah, in fact, in these cases, the parents might even do it with them. That's true. Like maybe
shots.
No, the first time they tried drugs was with their parent. I mean, that can easily be a permissive parent. And say, well, if they're going to do it, they're doing it with me. But okay, that's a different philosophy.
Right.
Poor social skills. total lack of discipline in their own lives.
Yeah.
So that, lack of motivation,
Yeah.
poor academic performance, problems with authority. So you can see the stereotype that you're cultivating there
Yeah.
of what a person like that probably came from. So if you know
Sure.
people like that,
Yep.
you could probably get an idea of what their parents were like.
Yeah. I was in a friend's household and I saw his parents not as disciplined, and he would just kind of
Do whatever.
with things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could never talk to my family that way.
I'd be curious how, as an adult, how much they learn and what it's saying and what happens. And I don't know how this all changes. As
Yeah,
an
and it's
adult.
kind of like rolling the dice at that point, because in some cases people might respond okay with it. The kid will be fine, but I can imagine that more often than not, that the latter part of what you said is more frequent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing here. Is, as a parent, you're looking at these different parenting styles, and you say, okay, so what do I want my kid to be like?
Yeah.
Do I want them to have good social skills?
Right.
Do I want them to stay away from things that are going to harm them? Do I want them to make good decisions and have motivation and or be all these things? Well, what's the best way to do that?
Right.
And so these parenting styles are pretty key in that because they have a great effect on it. So the third one, and I think this is the one that was added from the original 3 that were done, is neglectful or uninvolved parents.
Okay.
So this is different than permissive. They're involved. They're still there. They're present. But this is probably the most harmful. This is one. It's also typically not caused by a children's behavior. In other words, a lot of these styles come into play based on their interaction with the child. Like the child does something, and then you act or you don't act.
Yeah.
This is something where you're not even there.
Right, yeah.
So
it's almost like you don't care.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's the best way of explaining it.
Yeah.
So and the reality is they need help. This is somebody
Sure.
who needs help, who's obviously neglectful. The good news is that it can be helped. I mean, it's something that can be changed. It's not, it's not set in stone either. So how do you recognize someone who's neglectful or uninvolved? It's probably pretty self-explanatory, but basically, do you even know what's going on in your child's life?
Right, yeah. Do you know where they are right now?
Well, we laugh, but it's true. Like, I'm going to tell you a story, and I may have told it on a different podcast. Is the home a safe place? That's the other thing. I mean, that's one of the keys I recalled. One of the most important things for a child growing up is to feel safe.
Yeah.
In their environment, to feel like they're protected. You think about some of these environments where these kids are, and it's like they're constantly worrying about like their life, or something happening when they leave the house.
Sure, yeah.
That's crazy to think about that as a kid. We
I
all
totally-
have different
yeah.
stuff. But,
No, totally, yeah.
do you spend a lot of time away from the home, leaving the child alone?
Right.
So that, and I think I may have mentioned this story, but I'll say it again because we have 80-something episodes, and so I forget which ones.
Sure.
I met a gentleman, same age as me. I think he was one of 4 boys, and he said that from the time he was, I want to say around 6 to 11, he saw his parent once every couple of months.
What?
They lived by themselves, the kids.
Wow.
So he was on a military base.
Yeah.
Mother and father either broke up or divorced or something. Father got shipped out.
Oh, okay.
And so then the girl, I think it was like a girlfriend or some adult, I forget, would come to their house like once a month or once every other month, collect the checks in the mailbox, buy them food,
Yeah.
and then leave. Like,
And then disappear.
and just disappear.
It's like, take
So-
care of yourselves.
To take care of yourself. And I think that maybe the older brother, like when he was 6, was like 12 or 13 or something. They literally took care of themselves. Now, I don't know how social services and some of these other things, but they were on the base. He said that's how they lived.
Yeah.
They literally took care of themselves. They looked at each other. I mean, they had a place to live. They had a roof over their head. But
Yeah.
I'm like, even just brushing your teeth and like, having a meal. He's like, whoa, we had a lot of potatoes, and they were dirt poor.
Sure.
And I mean, he's a really nice guy. And you
Yeah.
think about like the ability to survive that,
Yeah.
and the effect that it has on you as an
Oh,
adult.
for
I
sure,
mean,
yeah.
I didn't have a long enough conversation to find out what effects it has or how he feels about it.
Dealing with his own demons or dealing with his own.
But even think about like trust or
Yeah.
other issues, and literally, I mean, him and his brothers to be alone, and just once in a while see an adult, and that's the way it was. Like they didn't
Yeah.
even think about it.
Yeah.
They had a place
Did
to
they
live.
go to school?
They went to school. They
No.
said if we wanted to, like we went to school, and they he said we would get up, we'd go to school, we'd come home, we'd do what we want, we'd hang out with the neighbors, whatever. Like they kind of just knew. I don't know if the neighbors were all accepting and they helped out or what. I wish I would have had a longer conversation.
No, but
I was fascinated by it.
It's amazing because I think that what happens is that the oldest takes the role
Right.
and feels like I have to take care of my
Yep.
brothers,
No,
so
absolutely.
I'm going to step up.
But you think about it, whether the boy was like 13 or 14,
Yeah.
taking care of like 3 other kids.
Yeah, I met a really young lady that was takes care of her mom, and because her mom has cancer, and so basically her mentality is a lot different, at least at the time, than the average person that was her
Yeah.
age. She's probably like 19 or something, and I just realized how mature she was because she had to be.
Right.
She had to take care of people.
I can't imagine it. As a kid, you think about I think about my kids as 6 years old, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Yeah.
and not having somebody there. How impactful that would be. It made me sad. Granted, he was a nice guy and we were having a good conversation and stuff, but I just can't imagine the effect that has.
Yeah.
And to be successful, he's working, he's married, has children, what we would deem successful in his
Sure.
life, he seemed to be doing okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And the resiliency as a young kid, to go through that, I can't imagine.
Yeah, yeah. That's
It was
great.
it was very, very interesting.
Wow.
So, talk about not having a home that's safe or stable.
Yeah.
The parent's not even there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know the situation, so I can't even say. But the fact is, how do you then not make sure that somebody is seeing after them? Even if they do put them in a home or I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
the situation, but it's I can't imagine leaving the kids.
Yeah.
You I guess if you're in the service, you have to.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You have no choice.
Yeah.
But the mom's not involved.
Well, I don't know.
Where's the mom?
So I don't know. I thought there'd be somebody that would
You would think so.
help
right.
them out, but
Right.
yeah,
But I don't know, and
it might have been a different time period or whatever.
it was a little different time, and it was here, local. In San
Yeah.
Diego,
Wow.
so, yeah.
Crazy.
So, and then do you spend any time with the child outside the home? This is the last part of it, neglectful or uninvolved. And so it's really just, you kind of check out.
Yeah.
That's maybe the word. You just
Sure.
kind of checked out. And so what happens to kids? Well, you can imagine. Really hard time forming relationships.
Oh yeah.
Just
Don't trust
lack of
anybody.
trust.
Yeah.
Totally. Lack of trust, and then also when they're kids, just trouble dealing with other children, just knowing how to interact. You're not being taught anything,
Yeah.
P's and Q's. You're just, it's a free for all.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times that's, kids are learning by watching.
Yeah.
And they watch our interaction as adults and in between, and
Yeah, you're gonna learn everything the hard way.
Right.
Because you don't get it.
It's trial and error. And,
Yeah.
whoa, I guess that wasn't a good way
Yeah,
of
I
doing
should
it.
have poked the guy with the stick.
Yeah. So those are, just kind of repeating and going back. We have the authoritarian parenting style, which is the strict
Yeah.
and and very regimented. Permissive, which is just lack of structure,
Yeah.
do whatever you want to do. And then we have the neglectful and involved. And then and that's just the most harmful one. Now, what they have said then is the most effective parenting style is authoritative. So instead of authoritarian, it's authoritative. And what that means, it's a much more healthy relationship. Now, there is structure, there's balance, there's organization, but it's also within reasonable amount.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of this balance. It's strict, but not too strict.
Yeah.
It's regimented, but not too regimented. And, there's structure and rules, and so that's how do you identify it? So there's structures and rules, and those are understood. One of the things it says is that there's consequences for disrupting those rules. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, because some of the stuff we talked about is not having consequences that are that big. So maybe the consequences are a little smaller. So in other words, somebody, your child does something, there's got to be a consequence to it, but the consequence is part of a learning experience, not a punishment.
Right.
That makes sense. It's that's what we talk about. It's not, you're not, go to your room, time out. You're, hey, how do we learn from this, or what could you do to make up for it? So
Right.
the consequences it's not a penalty. It's part of the education.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
And then the child has a clear understanding of the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
That's also important. And they said the number one thing is that the open communication with the child, so that the child, it's been established that the child feels safe and okay with coming to you and talking to you.
Right. Right.
And so I think the authoritative is just, it's kind of the combination of all the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And, by
The healthy amount.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's when, if you're going to be a parent or you're already a parent, it's good to identify what these different styles are and see the effect that they have on the children. Because the end result of these kinds of the authoritative is, well-adjusted, communicates better, feels good, self-esteem, the things that we want in our child.
Yeah.
To have, and so that's the empowerment by doing that. So,
Right.
So it's pure proof that the parenting style affects the children. Like some people still, for whatever reason, see a young child, and don't think that the parenting has an effect. It's like, oh, well, that's just the way that child is.
Right.
Okay, every child has a spirit.
Sure.
And they are a certain way.
Yeah, there's different chemical makeup.
Sure. Physical,
biology,
environment, whatever. But the parenting style and quote environment has such a huge impact.
Yeah.
Because if there's a kid that's a certain way and you act a certain way towards them, you can help them through things. It just amazes me to this day that people still don't.
Yeah.
Either one, blame the parent, or two, praise the parent. It's like you have such a powerful impact on your children.
Yeah.
The way that you act and the way that you handle things in the first 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
That that's
probably the number one impact.
That's why we do
deal
this.
with.
You don't have a lot of time
Yeah.
to establish what they're going to be like for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
and so,
sure.
As I said, they all have different personalities. My kids even, my daughter and son have very different personalities.
Yeah.
But yet they're good kids, and we work a lot with that.
Yeah.
It's not something that just happens out of luck. It's
Right.
like, now that may happen with some. But it is, and I want to say that with my parent, my mother put so much time and effort into making sure we, had values and were honest and, academics were important. All these things that that was their doing.
Yeah.
My mom and my dad, that was their doing to make these things important and instill those kinds of things. So now, can someone be all those things without having? Sure, they can.
Yeah.
But you have a better likelihood.
Yeah.
If
right.
you have the influence and you have,
Absolutely.
like you said, if it was your grandparents, think about how many things they taught you.
Yeah.
Till this day, are part of who you are.
Yeah.
Your grandma saying, "Hey, I think it's important that you eat good. And
Yeah.
that you balance meal, all the stuff that you've talked about." It's like
Sure.
it's such impact that we really have to understand how much of an impact we have on our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, that pre-12 years old, pretty
Yeah.
much is where you start.
And some people, I think, just they are who they are.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to be. It's like, no, that's not true.
No, yeah, I feel like it has a lot to do with your environment and who you're brought up by.
So give us some feedback. What kind of parenting style do you have?
Yeah.
Give us some comments and let us know. I'd also like to hear from people outside the United States and the
Yeah.
different parenting styles.
Sure.
Because certainly culturally there are very big nuances.
Yeah.
There are cultures where certain parenting styles are much more prevalent than others.
Sure.
That would be really, really interesting to understand.
Yeah.
So shoot us an email, podcast@dudestodads.com, Facebook, dudestodads.com, Twitter @dudestodads,
Yeah.
and maybe some reviews. What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be great.
On Stitcher
Stitcher and iTunes.
and iTunes.
Yeah.
5-star reviews.
5 stars.
Anything else?
No, that was good.
Gonna see you next week.
Of knowledge. Yeah, I think so.
Dropping knowledge.
Dropping knowledge all over the place. I'm going
Yeah.
to try to evaluate what kind of parent I want to be.
Do we need a sound effect for dropping knowledge? Is there something?
Books falling.
We need something. Sound man, where are you? Anyways, with that, Alan, thank you
Thank
as
you.
always, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.